introduction. Called me a great speaker like 8 times, so we're going to have to make sure we hit the ball out of the park for the Casamatides family and everybody here at PAL. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be back. I came here while I was governor as well. It's a great organization and one that Mary Pat and I are always going to be happy to support with our time and with our money. I'm going to let most of today be questions from all of you because I'm sure that you have a lot of them. But a couple of things I want to observe about what's going on in our world right now that I think that you might be interested in. First of all, I think there's now 24 or 25 Democrats running for President of the United States. I think one went out and one came in. And I don't know if you all watched any of these debates. How many of you watched the debates a couple weeks ago? Raise your hand. A room full of masochists. Tremendous. And just a couple observations about some of these folks. So let's start off with the guy who was like the sensation when he came in, right? Beto O'Rourke. Now, I watched Beto in that debate the other night, and I think that you probably would agree, because all of us were at one time or another in elementary school. And we remember when the teacher called on the kid who had not done the homework the night before. Isn't that what Beto looked like the entire time during that debate? Like they would say, Beto or Julian Castro went after him. And Beto had that look in his eyes like, oh God, not me, I'm not prepared. Don't call on me. It was just one of the most awful performances I've ever seen. And now he's at 1% in the polls. And I read an article yesterday where he's saying, I think I need to reconfigure my campaign. I think he does. He needs to reconfigure it to Texas. Go back, go home, do whatever. I think he'd be better off as like a front man in a cover band at a bar someplace in Austin than he would be as President of the United States. And so he needs to get out of the race. I think he proved it. And there were a bunch of the other folks who showed up. I mean, this is not like a partisan observation on my part, because I don't agree with any of them about anything. So put that aside. This is about just having been on the stage 4 years ago, being someone who has to perform in a debate on television. Because let's go to the top of the polls. It wasn't like Joe Biden did a whole lot better than Beto O'Rourke. When you end an answer saying, my time is up, and you're 76 years old, people could misinterpret that statement. Poor Joe was looking at Kamala Harris like he didn't know what the hell she was talking about. He's like, don't you understand? I did that 40 years ago. I don't remember. I don't remember what I voted on or what I did. That's the guy at the top of the polls and Beto at the bottom of the polls. The other guy who got saved the other night was the mayor of South Bend. Now, first off, let's start with that. He's the mayor of South Bend, running for President of the United States. Now, I spent a lot of time in South Bend the last 5 years, 4 of the last 5 years. My daughter was a student at the University of Notre Dame. And I'll tell you how ambitious Pete Buttigieg is. First day, I'm moving my daughter into her dorm in the fall of 2014. Into her dorm at Notre Dame. And I'm doing what every other father and mother do, right? We're picking up boxes out of the truck and we're lugging them up the stairs. She was, thankfully, it was great, 3rd floor out of 4. So we're walking our way up those stairs and carrying these boxes. My 3rd trip down, this young guy is standing by my Suburban. And he said, Governor, hi, how are you? I said, great, how are you? He said, good. He said, I want to introduce myself. I'm Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. Where are you mayor? How would I know? From New Jersey. I don't know a damn thing about Indiana. Right? Like, where are you mayor? He goes, I'm mayor here. And I said, oh, well, nice to meet you. And I shake his hand. And he says, if there's ever anything you need, let me know. And I'm like, well, what would I need from you? And he looked at me and he said, well, you know, your daughter's going to be here and everything. I said, listen, here's what I want for my daughter. I want you to forget that she's my daughter. I want her to have a regular college experience. It's bad enough being my daughter on a regular basis, let alone having to worry about the mayor of South Bend showing up at her dorm. I'm telling you, every time I went to South Bend over the next 4 years, this guy would find me. Every time. I'm at a basketball game, let's say I get tapped on the shoulder, it's Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I'm tailgating at a football game, before the game, it's Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I'm like, finally, like the 6th time he came up to me, I said to him, you know I'm a Republican, right? Like there's literally nothing I can do to help you. And there was little that he could do except for one person to help on the debate stage the other night. You might remember Eric Swalwell, who's now out of the race, thank goodness. He, though, was born in pretty good on Pete Buttigieg about the shooting that went on in South Bend and asked him, why haven't you fired the police chief? And Mayor Pete just didn't really have an answer for that. You know, they hadn't pre-programmed one in for him, so he didn't know what to say. So he was kind of hemming and hawing, and then he got asked again, answer me, Mayor, why haven't you fired the police chief? And then out of nowhere, as if she was actually in the audience, came Marianne Williamson. Now, for those of you who don't know Marianne Williamson, she's running for president of the United States. And she was actually on the stage that night. And she comes in and starts talking about reparations. She interrupts. Pete Buttigieg should send her 24 roses, because he never had to answer the question. They went to Marianne Williamson, they started responding to Marianne Williamson, and Pete Buttigieg took a walk. So get ready for next time, because all the other folks who are watching that, they didn't miss that. Mayor Pete better have a better answer about why he hasn't fired the police chief in South Bend. And in the end, that's part of the problem with this field. With the exception of Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, none of them have ever been on the national stage before. And I can tell you that when you're standing up there for the first time, even if you've been on the national stage before, and they say to you, 30 seconds to go, and we expect 35 million people to be watching tonight, it's a different experience. When you run for president, there's only two options. They're the brightest lights in the world, are on you. And there's only two options. You either shine or you melt. And you saw a bunch of people who melted. And you saw someone like Kamala Harris who shined a bit and looked like she kind of had her act together and had a plan, and she came in and executed her plan. I asked people have asked me a number of times in the last couple of weeks, is Joe Biden finished? And the answer is no. I want you to remember a couple of things. Remember George W. Bush in 2004, Ronald Reagan in 1984, and Barack Obama in 2012. In each one of their first debates, they tanked. They did awfully. And everybody was giving the early political obituary to all three of those guys. And with all three of them in the second debate when they came back, they were better. They were ready. And the crisis was past. So if you're betting on Joe Biden, watch in 2 weeks in Detroit. He's going to have to come back and perform. Because if he doesn't, people are going to start saying he's too old, he can't the fastball anymore, he's not up to it, and they'll begin to dismiss him. And when that happens, like a lot of people in this room who have supported political candidates before, the money goes south. The first indication of a candidate who had it and is now losing it is they can't raise money anymore. Because people want to bet on someone who they think has a chance to win. So Biden's got a real challenge coming to him in 2 weeks, because there are going to be a bunch of people after him, and they're going to be looking to see if they can get rid of him now. Because the sooner they get rid of him, from their perspective, the more it frees up a bunch of money, the better off it'll be. The other person to watch out for the next time is Kamala Harris, because she's now raised her head above all the rest of them. And when you raise your head above all the rest of them, that means there's a target on your head. And so all the rest of them are going to be looking to make themselves famous now too. She's made herself famous by going after Joe Biden, having Joe Biden say, my time is up. Someone's going to try to make themselves famous on Kamala Harris now in Detroit in a couple of weeks. So she needs to be ready. She had a long time to plan that attack on Joe Biden. There was nothing spontaneous about it. That was planned. There wasn't a question that had anything to do with it. She just turned and wheeled, and she had been practicing for a long time, and she delivered. Congratulations, that's good. She better have something planned for the next time. But the problem is, she's going to be taking incoming the next time. And how you take incoming will determine ultimately how you do in these debates. Whatever you plan, and you'll get away with some of that. But what's going to be coming in? And the person who, of course, best defines that is the President of the United States. Not only does he swing at every pitch, no matter where it is, in the dirt, over his head, 8 inches outside, doesn't matter. He swings at every pitch. But if you remember back to the primaries in 2016, he had a key moment in the very first minute of the very first debate. And I would say to you, having been on that stage that night, that was one of the defining moments. When Megyn Kelly asked her first question to Donald Trump, and she used every derogatory adjective that Donald Trump had used to describe women. over the course of time. And he interrupted her about 2/3 of the way into the question and said, "Only Rosie O'Donnell." And the audience in the arena went wild laughing. Megyn Kelly was completely thrown off whatever her game plan was to go after Trump. And everybody else on the stage, including me, were minimized because he had taken some really tough incoming in the first minute and had fired back something that was not at all substantive, but stylistically made everybody know this guy's ready for a fight. And what Republicans wanted in 2016 more than anything else, after 8 years of Barack Obama, was somebody who was ready for a fight. In 2020, what Democrats want more than anything else is somebody who they think can fight with Donald Trump. And so, as you watch, they're going to be watching to see how do they deal with the incoming, because they're going to be trying to picture Donald Trump all over this person when they're the Democratic nominee, and are they going to be able to respond? Are they going to be able to counterpunch? Are they going to be able to keep themselves standing politically while he does what he does? You know that whoever the nominee is will have a nickname. Some of them already do. Someone said to me, "Who do you think the president wants to run against?" I said, "I don't have to think. I know who he wants to run against. He wants to run against Elizabeth Warren." Because the Pocahontas thing is already set in stone, right? Everybody's heard it, everybody knows it, and what he will do, if it's Elizabeth Warren, is every day try to minimize her as much as he can, diminish her, the same way he diminished Low Energy Jeb, and Little Marco, and Lion Ted, and then ultimately Crooked Hillary. We remember all those, right? The guy's a master at branding. Almost as good as Vernon Hill in Commerce and Republic, but not quite as good. Almost as good. He's got a little further than you, Vernon. But the point is that people ask all the time now, who's going to win the Democratic primary? Do you think the president will be reelected? In terms of the Democratic primary, I will tell you today, anybody who tells you they think they know has not a damn idea. Because you have all these inexperienced people. If Joe Biden survives, then it's easy. But to survive, he has to be disciplined. And for those of you who follow politics over the last 30 years, when has Joe Biden ever been disciplined? Ever. And you see it again and again, week after week. So I think I'm skeptical about it. Even though I think he'd be the best person to be on the stage for the Democrats against Donald Trump. And the reason for that is not because of his style or his experience. It's because, remember how the election got decided 3 years ago. 77,000 votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That's what elected Donald Trump president of the United States. 77,000 votes in those 3 states. And the majority of those people were white working class voters. So the question is, of all those people on the stage, which ones do you think have the ability to attract those voters again to change their mind? Because a lot of those people voted for Barack Obama in 2012. Didn't vote for Mitt Romney. They voted for Barack Obama. These people are persuadable. So I think the way to look at this, if you're trying to predict who's going to win, is to say, who do you think has the best shot to persuade those people? And I think Democratic primary voters are a lot less ideological right now than they're being portrayed by the media. The most important thing they want is someone they think can beat Donald Trump. And so I think they're going to make their judgments that way. I think that's why Biden's at the top of the polls now. And while he'll stay there unless he just completely, commits Harry. And he could. Keep watching. He also, when I talk about the president swinging at every pitch, it's been interesting to watch what's been going on with the British ambassador the last few days, hasn't it? Now, most presidents would have just ignored that. These cables came out, they were written 3 years ago. He understands that the ambassador is supposed to give whatever he thinks is going on in the United States candidly to the prime minister, and that's an ambassador's job. And of course, he always thought those were going to be confidential. I'm sure he's really loving the people over in Britain who leaked that to the press. But what Democratic candidates saw this week is that Donald Trump will not let any slight go unanswered from anybody. Kim Darkin is the ambassador, was until this morning, the British ambassador to the United States. Did anyone in this room know his name prior to the last 3 days? Not you, Ambassador. Anybody else? Not you, Ambassador. You're excluded. Anybody else know his name? Everybody knows his name now. And the great thing about Trump is, I'm confident, I know the president's met him a couple of times, but I'm confident the president doesn't know him. And may, in fact, not be able to even have picked him out of a lineup. But did you see the stuff he's been saying about him the last 2 days? Like, not very smart, nobody likes him. We never liked him. I mean, the president is not tethered in any way to try to not be hyperbolic, right? He's not tethered in any way. So once this guy said anything bad about him, even if it was 3 years ago, he never liked him. He's not smart. He's an embarrassment. But he can't stop there. Then he gets back on Theresa May because she appointed him, right? So now he's like, and by the way, Theresa May, stupid, didn't understand how to do Brexit. I could have done it. I would have done it better. I mean, it's been a 3-day barrage of tweets about people that no one even knows. But because they slighted the president 3 years ago, in confidential cables back to Great Britain, this guy is now public enemy number 1. One of the things I've learned over my 17-year friendship with Donald Trump is he always needs an enemy. He always needs an enemy. And then the question is, when we get close to the election and people ask, how can he lose? With a great economy, with the lowest unemployment we've had in decades, with actual wage growth happening for people across the country, with relative peace in the world, how is he going to lose? If he loses, I don't think he will, but if he does, it'll be because sometime next summer or early fall, he picks the wrong enemy. That somebody takes a shot and puts the bait out there and he rises to the bait on the wrong person. And then instead of talking about the economy and talking about world peace and talking about the great things that he's done for deregulation, conservative judges on the bench, all the rest, we're talking about his enemy, who winds up being one of the enemies who's able to punch back just as hard as they get punched by him. That's the only way I see the president losing. If he swings at that pitch that turns out to be the one, that is a real problem for him. And so that's why we're going to be watching right up until the last minute of this, because it could happen at any moment on both sides, but particularly with the president. So for those of you who are going to intensely follow this, take a break for the rest of the summer, okay? If you have to watch the debates, go ahead and do it, but don't be reading every little thing, because I can tell you, as someone who ran 4 years ago, the stuff we were doing in the summer of 2015 had little or nothing to do with who eventually emerged and won. You'll remember in the summer of 2015, everyone said, Donald Trump's not even going to stay in the race. Donald Trump will never file his financial disclosure. Donald Trump won't show up after the first debate. After Donald Trump said what he said about John McCain, he's out of the race. After Donald Trump said what he said about the Khan family, he's out of the race. After Donald Trump said what he said about the judge in Indiana, he's out of the race. If all of you had money get paid to you for every time someone said he was going to get out of the race in the summer of 15 into the fall of 15, you'd all be richer than you already are. The fact of the matter is that people who try to predict what's going to happen in politics 16 months out are usually not right. In fact, they're often very wrong. Because remember, at this time, right now, 4 years ago, the overwhelming frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president was Jeb Bush. And the person in second place was Scott Walker, who, by the way, never got a vote. He was out by September. He was a frontrunner today. He was out and broke and in debt by September. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns that are going to happen here. Some that we can predict, but most that we can't, because we're dealing with human beings. The last thing I'll tell you about the politics of right now, we're dealing with human beings. Don't ever forget that. They got to call home and talk to their family when they're off in New Hampshire or Iowa. They get home after like 4 town hall meetings to the Des Moines Marriott, where there's no room service, and they order a Domino's pizza, which in Iowa passes for good pizza. Imagine if you're from New Jersey. And they're telling you, you say, where can I get good pizza? And they go, Domino's. You're, no. Think about the little things that affect people's moods. I had a very funny conversation a couple of years ago with Jeff Zucker, the head of CNN, who was criticizing me. Donald Trump was already president. He was criticizing me for having endorsed Trump and being the first major political figure that did so. And he said, you made him acceptable by you going and saying that you were going to endorse him. It's your fault, he said to me. And I said, that's an interesting point, Jeff. I said, let me tell you from my perspective how this happened. I said, I was in Iowa after having done 3 town hall meetings one night, where I reached about 900 people. Did one in the morning, I did one after lunch, I did one in the evening. I get back to the Des Moines Marriott with my Domino's, and I go up to my room, and I turn on CNN. And what do I see for the next hour? No commercial, uninterrupted, Donald Trump's speech from Alabama, reaching hundreds of thousands of people. And I said, so whose fault is this? Like, if you want to assign blame, look at yourself in the mirror, man, and you know why you did it. And don't ever forget this about media coverage. It's not only that it slants left, it slants green. Donald Trump understood from the beginning that he was ratings gold. And CNN, MSNBC, Fox made more money in 2015 and 16 than they had made in any years in their existence. And the reason they did was because they put Donald Trump on TV nearly 24/7. Now, for those of us who were also in the race, we're like, hey, back here, little attention, please. Think about the way you changed Sunday morning shows forever. If you were a presidential candidate and you wanted to be on a Sunday morning show, first of all, you had to be invited. Couldn't just call in. And secondly, you had to show up in the studio, whether that be in Washington or in New York. So if you were in New Hampshire or Iowa, you got on a plane and you flew back to do your 8 or 9 minutes on Meet the Press or This Week or Face the Nation. Donald Trump sat in his apartment at Trump Tower and did 5 shows a Sunday, calling in. We then tested that and said, well, Governor Christie would like to call him next week. I don't know if you want to, you got to come in. Now, I'm sure that ABC, my current employer, NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN, all made those decisions based upon journalistic standards. I'm sure that's what they did. So remember, as you're watching this race too, the media not only slants left, they slant green. And you will watch, as you've seen the different sensations in the Democratic Party and all the attention they've gotten. Remember when Beto O'Rourke was really hot? He was all over TV. You couldn't get away from him. He's on the cover of Vanity Fair, for God's sake. You couldn't get away from him on TV. And each one of them that has become the sensation gets all the TV time because that creates money for the networks. Don't forget that piece of it when you're analyzing how this race will play out. If someone gets really hot and is on TV all the time, it makes a huge difference. And remember, Donald Trump, the analysis afterwards was that he got over $2 billion in free media in 2015 and 16. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary amount of money, and there's no doubt that contributed to his ability to win the race. So as you're watching it this time, watch who becomes hot. Watch who they're putting on all the time. It's not only that they're trying to predetermine the outcome. It's absolutely more selfish than that. They're putting the people on who they think will give them the highest ratings because then they can charge the highest fees for their commercials and then they can make the most money. And that's why, even though all of them despise Trump, all of them, except for Fox, right? They'll have him on. Let me tell you, man, they'll have him on because it slants green. So politics is not merely just about ideas and personalities and campaigns and who runs them. It's about a lot of things that as a candidate you can't control. That's the risk for the president, That's the risk for every one of these Democrats that is standing up there right now. Now, of course, some of them have nothing to lose. Let's just end with Andrew Yang. Why end with Andrew Yang? Why not? I mean, this is a guy, if you watched him in the last debate, this is the guy who wants to give everybody $1,000 a month just for being here. And the moderator said to him, you realize that the cost of that is $3.2 trillion a year. He looked surprised. He said, his eyes got this big. It was almost like he was saying, shit, I didn't do the math, you know? So I was expecting him when he finally got his mouth back closed and tried to gather himself for him to say, how about $500 a month? You know, and just start bargaining right there on the air. That's another amazing thing about American policy that Donald Trump has uniquely made possible. Before Donald Trump, Andrew Yang is never on that stage. Marianne Williamson is never on that stage. We had a system which believed that you needed to have some measure of experience in public life before running for president of the United States. Donald Trump has given courage to every one of those inexperienced or non-experienced candidates on that stage to say, hell, why not me? So you're Andrew Yang saying, I'll give $1,000 a month to everybody. And you think, why not? It could work. Look at who's president. He never did any of this stuff before. Why not me? Why not Marianne Williamson? Go through the list of these folks. It's hysterical. And I end with Andrew Yang because Andrew Yang is there because of Donald Trump. He's possible because of Donald Trump. And remember something. To get on that stage, he had to have either over 1% in an average of the polls or 65,000 unique donors. I want to meet those 65,000 people. I am willing at my own expense to rent out MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And for every one of those 65,000 people who actually gave money to Andrew Yang for President of the United States, invite them in. I'll give them free food. I just want to hear from them. What the hell were you thinking? What drove you to get on the internet and look for Andrew Yang's website? And then go, yeah, why not? I'll throw him $50. I mean, seriously, maybe that's where Yang got the idea for the $1,000. He's like, well, all these people are giving me money, maybe I'll just give money back out to everybody else. It's going to be a crazy next 16 months. It'll be crazy because of all these Democrats who have no experience, and it's going to be crazy because we have the president that we have. He can't wait for this to start. You know that. He can't wait for this to start. He can't wait to get back out and do his rallies. He can't wait to be on that debate stage again. He can't wait. The rest of this stuff that he's doing every day is like a sideline. He's like, let me get back on the campaign, man. I can't wait. Who are they going to put up in front of me? So it will be nothing if not entertaining. Hopefully at moments it will be informative. And hopefully we'll wind up in a spot that's good for our country. Because in the end, we got to remember one thing, and I'll take your questions. This isn't about entertainment. America is the singularly most important country in the world. And we need to make sure that we remain that way. And the fact of the matter is, if we wind up making this more about entertainment than we make it about being a beacon for the rest of the world of hope and inspiration, then we're going to wind up not laughing after a while about this stuff. Lots of people around the world still look at this country. In fact, most people around the world still look at this country and wish they were here. And we got to keep it that way. Because the single greatest strength America has is the ideals that we stand for every day. Not only here, but around the world. So we can enjoy the entertainment as much as we can, but in the end, we better wind up voting for someone and electing someone who can continue that around this country and around the world. Because if we don't, America will be less for it. And for us, we'll probably survive it just fine. But for our children and grandchildren, it may be a different America than the one we grew up in and the one we benefited from. And I don't think any of us want that. So thank you all for having me today. I'm happy to take questions from folks.